Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Thank you so much for joining us again for another week of Maximize Monday. If you're watching, if you're listening, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to check us out. So as you can see, there is a new guest with me this week. I have Stephanie joining me, who's very passionate about the logistics industry. So looking forward to having her kind of talk about what is motivating you about the industry itself. I know it's a crazy time in logistics right now, so we'll certainly jump into that. But thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to join me here.
Of course. Thank you.
For sure. So looking ahead in terms of the motivations for me this week. So I have a lot going on. Usually, historically, summer's kind of been kind of a wind down period for us in the industry because people have vacations, they have plans going on. It's usually kind of let's push this stuff till the fall. But this year's kind of completely different. So that's kind of been motivating for me is just because I'm always busy. There's not a ton of time that I'm like kind of sitting, sourcing all of that stuff. It's kind of a full burn ahead type of situation. So which is a good thing. I mean, you wouldn't think being busy over the summer is a nice thing. You want to be outdoors, you want to experience the weather, all that good stuff. But with all the calls, the interviews, all that stuff that I have, that certainly has been a motivator for me in terms of staying on top of my game, making sure I'm providing insight, feedback, all that good stuff to the candidates who are taking the time to apply for us. So beyond work, the motivators I have. So my wife's birthday is coming up this Friday. So we have a few events that are planned around that coming up that I'm looking forward to. We have a sitter 2 different days this week, which is exciting. So 2 different days that we get to kind of have the date night, date, day experience. So her parents are watching the little one on Friday so we can go out for dinner and enjoy the night out on the town. And then my parents are coming up for Sunday so that she and I can go to a Phillies game together.
Oh, nice.
Few times we've gone to games, we've had the little one in tow. So usually one of us is in our seats and the other one is running through the concourse and trying to find the fanatic and making sure she's entertained. So this time the two of us just get to enjoy. So looking forward to that. So that certainly is motivation for the weekend plans that we have coming up to do all that. So goals for the week, like I had mentioned, we're crazy busy right now. I have some new roles, ones that I haven't really worked on before. So typically the roles I'm hiring within are kind of all over the place from office to production, everything in between. So this time through, I have a couple content creator positions that are opening up that I'm working on, which is exciting for me because content creation is kind of my thing. So getting to hire some people to do that too is going to be a fun experience for me going through that. So again, just kind of looking at new avenues, how you can recruit, getting a feel for what people are doing in terms of their content creation. So conversely, I also get to like steal some ideas, maybe see what they're doing that I really like and be like, yeah, I can use that moving forward. So that's one of the main goals is just kind of getting into, diving into that, seeing what the new strategies are that I should be on top of as well. And then a win from the week before, we did have the short week. So I was able to close out one position. So when you're in a shorter week and still trying to fit everything in, it can sometimes get hectic, and making those follow-up calls sometimes is what you need to do. That's what I was able to do this week. So we got to close one out. So that's what I have going on in my world this week. Stephanie, what's going on your end?
Yeah. So big win. We filled our internships for the summer. So those start Monday, and that was a big rush. I'm sure you're well aware. So that was a lot. Logistics
Yeah,
internships are not something that everybody's looking for. So
right.
it was pretty cool. We filled quite a bit, and I was hiring in Pittsburgh. So that was a huge shift for me. I've never recruited in Pittsburgh, so it's kind of cool. I feel like that's a huge win. And now that that's done, I'm very motivated to get back to my regular recs. I have one that's like super specialized, and it's like a claim and compliance manager. I've been sourcing for a couple months now, and I am just yeah. So that's motivating to get back to it. That way I can just close it since we finished all of our internships. And then another motivating factor for me, like personally, is to get more in going with my little side hustle gig that I do. And so that's kind of, my big motivation as well, like to get more time, I guess, to put towards that. And then yeah, I guess my big goals right now are more like connecting with people. I know I have quite a bit of connection, so I'm trying to engage more, which is why I'm here. I'm like,
Right.
okay, I've never said yes to anything like this, so that's a huge a huge step for me, stepping out of my comfort zone. So that's one of my biggest goals right now, is just to start connecting and using my network and utilizing the connections that I have made so far. So
Okay, gotcha. So
yeah.
why I reached out to you, you agreed to be on the show. You had the post the other day of how passionate you are about the logistics industry. And I think that's one of those industries that people kind of will have they don't understand all the different things that you can do within the industry. You know, you hear logistics and you just think transportation and that's it. But there's so much more to it than that, which is why I thought it would be great to get you on to kind of provide that insight. So with you working in logistics for so long, what are some of those different roles that people can get excited about that you love to talk about and get them into?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the company, but even at the company I'm at now, I mean, we're a 3PL and we have technical roles as well. So we have like app developers, software developers, we have all of that. And then including, customer support, brokerage, sales. So, there's kind of a bit of everything. Like I said, I'm hiring a claims manager. I know we're looking for like a creative marketing director. So across the board, the companies that I have recruited for in the past as well, those have, had some technical roles as well. I've also done tech recruiting and university tech recruiting. So I just feel like logistics is a huge industry that people don't necessarily, like you said, give the time of day, because they do think of like, oh, a truck driver. And, there's just so much more behind getting your stuff from point A to point B that people don't really understand. And I think that's why I'm so passionate, because I've learned so much on each side. I've also hired truck drivers. That's where I started. So from going to that and then going to like the technical, I worked for Too Simple, where they built the trucks that technically drive themselves. So it's a cool industry, and just to see the different sides and that everything that goes into. And we think about it like, oh, they just deliver a shipment from this warehouse to Target and then I get to go buy it. Like there's just so much more behind that, and so many pieces and moving parts, and so it's very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also one of those industries that is never going to go away. People are always going to need to get things from point A to point B, no matter what those things are: raw material, finished goods,
Yeah.
products themselves.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those things. So how has that portion of the industry and the stability in that aspect helped you when it comes to recruiting and discussing these open positions that you hire for?
Yeah, so that's something that I always talk about as well. Like logistics is always going to be needed. It's not going away. No matter how much they try to automate it, there's still going to be people that need to be in the background, or, making sure that everything goes accordingly, even with automatic trucks. I mean, we still had to have drivers in there, and people, making sure that the truck went normal. And so it's just something that's never going to go away, no matter how automated we get. And I know everybody's trying to do the whole AI thing right now, and no matter what, it's always going to be needed in any aspect. So I feel like that's a huge selling point as well for people coming into the logistics industry who have no background. I'm like, this is something that's never going to go away. Even if the company that you're working for somehow does close down, or, they make cuts, there's always going to be another logistics company or another trucking company or another, transportation company that is looking. It's something that there's so many startups and then they end up growing huge, or, I mean, you do have those ones that start and then they don't end up making it, and that's fine. Like I said, as long as you do get that experience, and then you can, I mean, it just broadens up your horizons as far as where you're going to be searching for your next opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so for someone who's been in the recruitment industry now for some time and has kind of seen the peaks and valleys that go within recruitment and kind of all over the different industries and how that's impacted, how did you get your start into it? And now with the shifted focus for you recently onto the logistics side of things, was that kind of a natural evolution for you throughout? Because I know you kind of started within that. Was that just kind of, I want to continue growing because I'm so passionate about this industry and the opportunities that come with it?
Yeah, so I initially started as like I said, a truck driver recruiter at a small trucking company, but I also wanted to learn the ins and outs, and that's just how I am, and that's how my brain works. I want to know how things work. So I went on to do operations. I did account management. I even did brokerage. Like I've done accounting. I did it all in the background. And I went back to another trucking company and they wanted me to be a recruiter. I started doing that. I did HR as well, and like safety and things like that. And after just talking to a whole bunch of people, I'm like, hey, I'm really good at this, just having those conversations daily. I love to talk clearly. So having those conversations, meeting people, like that's something that I'm very passionate about. And then also just being that person that's like, hey, here's your next career opportunity. Like, this is going to change your life. Or, I love being that person. And I think that's why I love recruiting so much, is because I am like, if you're talking to a candidate that got laid off like 4 months ago and they're just down on their luck, and you're able to offer them that position, like the hiring managers love them, and you're able to offer that position. That's a great feeling. Like, I
Yeah.
get it. That's not me getting it, but I'm able to help someone get that position. And like I said, I'm sure it changes their lives at that time. And I can go home like proud of my work, and okay, I did that. I helped them, get back on their feet, or, things like that. So that's something that I realized that I was very passionate about as far as recruiting goes. And logistics, like I said, I mean, that's something that's never going to go away. And so I've just been very knowledgeable because of my experience. So I feel like that's something that's helped me do so well as a recruiter in the logistics industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, another thing that's really important for recruiters in general that I don't think gets talked about a ton, and it probably should, is the networking, the branding aspect of it, and how you use not just LinkedIn, but social media in general to kind of get your voice, your presence out there so people can kind of get to know who you are behind, who you are as a recruiter, give some insight in terms of who you are beyond that. And you're one that has consistently posting on LinkedIn. So is that strategic on your end? Do you tell yourself like, I need to do this, or is it just like, hey, why not type of situation?
I know, I'm like, that's one of my goals, is to get like better and more strategic and more consistent. But I'm very much and I know it sounds terrible, but I'm very much a like go with the wind type of person. So if one day I'm
Mhm.
feeling the urge to post and be active, then I do. The next day, if I'm just not in the right mind space, I don't want to force anything out. That's something that I pride myself on as well. Like, everything I do post is very close to me. Like, it's something that I truly believe in. So I'm not going to just sit here and, throw things out there just to see what sticks.
Right.
Um, so I know I need to get more consistent, but I definitely feel like with my experience, I feel like that's definitely helped me as well, as far as creating, the posts that I do create. I mean, it reaches to some people because they're either going through it or they do have that experience as well. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my thing. I'm
Consistent.
not very knowledgeable about, content creating or anything like that. I'm kind of just like I get the urge to do it and I get up and do it, or, create
Well,
videos or whatever. So
right, absolutely, and that's kind of one of the things that I think I've always kind of connected with your posts on, is just because there's variety to it. It's because I'm very structured in mine. If you follow my page, you see there's like, you do the Monday thing, and I usually do like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that's it. So I try to do a little more variety. So that, I think that's why I've always enjoyed yours, is because it's not constantly the same thing. You're just kind of going with the flow, and I think that that kind of speaks to how you can recruit, is just kind of being that person, and being that recruiter for the candidate. So as you create that candidate experience, there's so many recruiters, they can work with anyone. You have to find ways to stand out and be kind of that support system for your candidates. So what do you try to do to anyone that you're working with, to let them know, you're there for them as well as clients, companies, things of that nature? Because it's an even balance that you have to work with sometimes.
yeah, of course. I mean, I'm very much, like I said, I love building relationships. Even with candidates that I've recruited in the past, and a couple have even like reached out to me a couple years later, like, where are you at now? Are you hiring? I do like to build those relationships. I always encourage people to add me on LinkedIn, stay in touch, get my email. Like I said, if they're not looking now, maybe they are down the road, and maybe I do have that specific role open at the time, and it'll be a perfect fit, and hey, less work for me. So I'm very big on, trying to help people as I can, and then just keeping that communication open. That's something I definitely pride myself on, is communication. Even if we're not going forward, even if I see something in my phone screen and I'm like, hey, don't do that in your hiring manager interview, I'm very open about that. And I've gotten like great feedback about that as well. Like, thank you so much. Like, I know I didn't get it, but I really appreciate you. And then they end up adding me and keeping in touch somehow down the road.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So a question I'm sure you've gotten before, I get all the time, and I'm transparent with this to anyone who asks me, is advice when it comes to resumes. So obviously we look at resumes all day. I'm
Mhm.
not a resume writer, and I tell people that, I know what I'm looking for in specific instances, but I can't tell you how to craft your resume perfectly, because it's so different for every single
Mhm.
hiring manager. So what I do like to give them insight, and what I'd like to ask you then is there anything that you've seen on a resume recently that kind of stood out to you as, oh, that's creative, that could work, or just kind of this format is appealing and is going to assist when it comes to getting in front of the hiring manager and getting their eyes on it that they want to accomplish.
I am so sorry. I think my dog's about to go crazy. But as far as resumes goes, I've been very open-minded about those. I know I see some kind of posts and they're like, oh, make sure your resume has this or does not have this. And I'm very open. I've seen resumes with pictures on it, but then it's also well detailed and bullet pointed. So I'm like, that's easier for me to read. So,
Right.
I mean, it just, yeah, like you said, it depends. I always just like to make sure that people, I mean, one thing I'm sure is across the board, just make sure you have numbers on there, like what you have accomplished, not just I type it, like the basics, like just make sure you broadcast what you've accomplished because that's something that you've worked so hard to do. So why not, I guess pat yourself on the back with that and throw it on your resume, even if you think it's irrelevant, like it could be used somehow for your next position. I don't care if you created a new process or, something so small as far as like an SOP or anything of that sort. Just make sure whatever you have accomplished, like make sure you throw that on there in some way, shape, or form. I feel like that's the only thing that I would, I guess, say or give advice on. Like you said, I'm not a resume creator or
Right.
writer at all. So I don't have any input. I never post anything about resumes because I'm like, to each his own, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do across the board, however you format your resume, however you do it. I mean, I would definitely throw your accomplishments on there, big or small.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the other thing that you'll see people post about consistently on LinkedIn is, they're applying to all these different jobs and then they get the email, the calendar invite for the interview, either with the recruiter themselves, with the hiring manager. And at times that can be overwhelming because if you're sending out so many resumes, so many applications, and you're finally getting this, sometimes you can psych yourself out. So as you're preparing your candidates for those interviews with the hiring manager, what are some tips you try to give to prepare them and kind of get them maybe comfortable, relaxed enough that they're not going in panicked and kind of second guessing themselves?
Yeah, so I know I've noticed quite a bit recently too. I'm guessing it's because all of like the layoffs and people haven't done interviews in a long time and
Mhm.
100% get it. I always like to tell people, especially when I'm in the phone screen, I'm like, what have you heard about our company? And they're like, oh, not much. So
Right.
I always advise them, like, take 20 minutes, like, that's all, 15 to 20 minutes. Just do a little bit of research about the company, understand what we do. Like, I can explain it to you only so much within our phone screen. So I do need you, to take that extra step and I'm not asking you to spend all kinds of time, but just make sure that you know what our company does before you go to the hiring manager.
Right.
So I just try to gauge on each candidate. So if they did take some time, then it definitely shows in the phone screen so that I'm always like, I am so sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
I'm always like, be yourself, you'll be fine. But you can tell those candidates that have been overwhelmed and they're just throwing resumes out there. They're kind of like, what company are you calling from again? So then I do take some time and I'll even send them like our website or, just, hey, just make sure you do a little bit of research before you do move forward. If they have the skills and everything, of course, I'm going to send them through. So that's kind of, something that I like to give as far as advice in that aspect of meeting with the hiring managers.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Now, I have a large contingent of transitioning teachers that I work with, support, try to give advice to. And with recruitment being one of those industries where a lot of teachers are now interested in transitioning into, one of the biggest questions you'll get is on the transferable skills aspect side of things. So for you, it's someone who's been in recruitment for some time now. What are some of the skills that you felt have made you a successful one that you would say, try to pinpoint this in terms of what you've done if you're going to highlight this as you transition into a role in recruitment?
I feel like communication. I mean, like I said, I'm huge on that. And I feel like that's a transferable skill no matter where you go. Especially, I mean, as a teacher, you communicate with your students all day, every day. You have to make them comprehend what you're trying to teach them. So, as far as being a recruiter, you're getting these candidates to comprehend what the company is about, what this role is about, what they can attribute to the company, what the company can do for them. So I feel like that's definitely one of the biggest transferable skills, like I said, and that's in anything that you go to. And yeah, I guess relationships. A recruiter, like you said, they can go to anybody. So the fact that they want to work with you or, they're wanting to join the company because of you, that says a lot about you and your personality. So I feel like that's a huge transferable skill in any aspect as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So then last question I have for you, and this is something I just ask anyone who comes on the show with me, just because it's always different, is what was when you were going through job searches in the past and looking for new opportunities, what was that key piece of advice, that insight that you got from your network or people that you trusted, worked with when you were looking for a position that you felt was extremely beneficial and that you always try to pass on to anyone who's now looking for a position and comes to you, hey Stephanie, I could use some advice. What would you say I should do during my search? What was that for you?
I feel like for me, it's definitely been just be yourself. And the right company will, fall. You're not going to be a fit everywhere, and that's okay. So taking those no's with a grain of salt definitely helped me, because I did, apply for a couple different positions and I didn't get it. And I'm like, oh, I really wanted that. But then down the road, I'm like, okay, maybe it wasn't going to be a fit. Um, so I definitely would say just be yourself. I mean, let your personality shine through no matter what it is. And you'll fit into the right, I can't explain it, but I'm very much a vibe person, and the right company will choose you, and you'll choose the right company based on you getting along or not getting along, but you reading the hiring managers, the recruiters that you work with. You can definitely tell if people are happy at the company that they work at just by speaking to them. So I feel like that's huge for me as well, especially within the logistics industry and being a female in this male dominated industry. That's been a huge one for me, is being myself, speak up, hold my ground, take up space. That's been a huge one for me. So I would, especially, with someone transitioning, that's exactly what I would tell them. Just use your voice and be yourself.
Awesome. Yeah, fantastic insight. So, Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time to join me here this week. For everyone watching, listening, thank you as well for taking the time. We hope you get value out of what we have to offer in terms of your job search. If you ever have any questions, we're here to help. So be sure you're reaching out, networking, asking people what they love about their jobs, what they love about their companies, because you'll find people that are ready to talk to you as much as you are to talk to them. So have a great week, and we will see you next Monday.